I was sitting at Thanksgiving dinner with 23 members of my extended family when my entire world exploded. My younger sister Jessica had just discovered, through a careless comment from our cousin, that I had $27 million in the bank. She stood up so fast her chair tipped backward, her face turning the color of cranberry sauce, and screamed that it was impossible because she was the successful one who got everything growing up. Uncle Robert started yelling at my father, demanding to know why he kept this massive secret from the family. My mother dropped the serving dish she was holding. It shattered across the hardwood floor, turkey gravy spreading like a stain. My father just sat there, frozen at the head of the table, unable to speak, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Everyone stared at me, waiting for an explanation I did not owe them. Let me back up and explain how we got here. Because this story does not start at that Thanksgiving table. It starts in my childhood, in a comfortable house in suburban Connecticut, where I grew up with my parents and my sister Jessica, who is 3 years younger than me. From the time Jessica turned 5 years old, she was treated like royalty in our house. My parents became convinced she was exceptionally gifted, destined for greatness, someone who needed every advantage they could possibly provide. They enrolled her in Brookfield Academy, a prestigious private school where tuition ran $45,000 per year. Meanwhile, I attended regular public school despite consistently bringing home better grades than Jessica ever did. When I asked my father why Jessica got to go to private school and I did not, he put his hand on my shoulder and said something I would hear variations of for the next decade. "You are self-sufficient, son. Jessica needs the best opportunities because she is going places. We need to nurture her potential." I was 8 years old when he said that. I did not understand what it meant to be self-sufficient at 8. I just knew it felt like being told I did not matter as much. Every birthday became a stark illustration of the difference between us. When Jessica turned 10, she got a trip to Disney World, a new bedroom set, and the latest iPhone. When I turned 13, I got a sweater from a department store and a gift card to a bookstore for $25. My parents smiled and told me they knew I would appreciate practical gifts. The pattern continued and deepened. Jessica received designer clothes from Nordstrom. I got mine from the clearance rack at Target. Jessica went to summer camps in the Berkshires where she learned horseback riding and theater. I mowed lawns in the neighborhood to earn spending money. When Jessica turned 16, my parents surprised her with a brand new BMW. I watched from the living room window as she screamed with joy in the driveway, jumping up and down while my mother cried happy tears and my father beamed with pride. They had parked it with a giant red bow on top, like in a commercial. When I turned 16 3 months later, my parents gave me the keys to a used Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. My father explained they found it at a good price from a guy at his office who was getting rid of it. The car had rust spots on the doors and the air conditioning did not work. My father clapped me on the back and said, "This will teach you responsibility and the value of things." I said thank you because that is what you do. But I remember thinking, what exactly is Jessica learning? The family vacations were perhaps the most painful part. Every summer, my parents would take Jessica on extravagant trips. I would hear about the planning for months. Paris when she was 14, London when she was 15, a Caribbean cruise when she was 16. They would show me the itinerary, talk excitedly about the restaurants and museums and beaches, and then they would tell me I would be staying with my grandmother. The explanation varied, but the theme stayed the same. Jessica needs cultural exposure. This trip is educational for her development. You would be bored anyway, Graham. You are not really into this kind of thing. Your grandmother loves spending time with you. My grandmother did love spending time with me. She lived in a small house in Rhode Island, and we would spend the weeks playing cards, watching old movies, and talking. She was kind to me in ways my parents were not. She asked me questions about my life. She remembered things I told her. She treated me like I was interesting, but I still knew I was being left behind. My parents attended every single one of Jessica's school events, every play, every awards ceremony, every parent-teacher conference. They sat in the front row and applauded loudly. They took pictures and posted them on social media with long captions about how proud they were. They missed most of mine. My father always had a work conflict. My mother had a headache, or Jessica had something more important happening. Once, I won a regional science fair and qualified for the state competition. My mother said she would try to come, but Jessica had a dance recital the same day. The dance recital won. I stopped telling them about my achievements after a while. It seemed easier than watching them forget or find excuses. I never complained outwardly. I learned early that complaining made things worse. My parents would get defensive and explain all the ways they were being fair, all the sacrifices they were making, all the reasons their choices made sense. So I stayed quiet and built a wall inside myself, brick by brick, disappointment by disappointment. Instead, I threw myself into work. I got a job at 14 stocking shelves at a grocery store. At 15, I started a lawn mowing service in the neighborhood. At 16, I worked as many hours as they would let me under labor laws. I saved every single dollar in a bank account my parents never asked about. Jessica spent freely. Designer purses, concert tickets, dinners with friends at expensive restaurants, all funded by our parents. She posted pictures online constantly, living a life that looked perfect and easy and golden. Meanwhile, I wore the same 3 pairs of jeans for 2 years and brought peanut butter sandwiches to school every day. The breaking point came at my high school graduation. I had worked myself to exhaustion for 4 years. I took every advanced class offered. I stayed up until 2 in the morning studying. I finished as valedictorian of my class with a 4.0 grade point average and a full academic scholarship to State University. The graduation ceremony was on a Thursday evening in June. I had reminded my parents about it for weeks. I had given them the date, the time, the location. I had told them I was giving a speech as valedictorian. They did not come. I walked across that stage in my blue graduation gown to receive my diploma and give my speech in front of 300 people. And the only person in the audience who was there for me was my grandmother. She sat in the middle section, 10 rows back, and when they called my name, she stood up and clapped so loudly I could hear her over everyone else. After the ceremony, I found her in the parking lot. She was crying. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe and told me she was so proud of me. She always knew I was special. I was going to do extraordinary things. I asked her if she knew where my parents were. She pressed her lips together and shook her head. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She pressed it into my hands and told me not to open it until I got home. When I got back to my house that night, my parents were not there. I found a note on the kitchen counter. "We are in California with Jessica touring colleges. Sorry, we could not make it to your graduation. We knew you would understand. Congratulations." We left money for pizza on the counter. There was $40 next to the note. I went up to my room and opened my grandmother's envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. "Graham," it read, "you are going to do something extraordinary. I believe in you when others cannot see it yet. Use this to start building your dreams. I love you more than you know." Grandmother. I sat on my bed holding that check and that note, and something crystallized inside me. I would never ask my parents for anything ever again. I would build a life so successful they would not be able to ignore it, and I would do it entirely on my own. That night, my parents came home at 11. I heard them come in, heard Jessica chattering excitedly about the campuses they had seen. Nobody came upstairs to ask about my graduation. That was the moment I became truly invisible to them. And in a strange way, it was also the moment I became free. I started college that fall at State University on a full academic scholarship that covered tuition and fees. I lived in the cheapest dormitory available, a cinder block building with communal bathrooms and heating that barely worked. My roommate was a guy named Chris who played video games until 3 in the morning and left pizza boxes stacked in towers around his desk. Jessica, meanwhile, went to a prestigious private university in Massachusetts, where tuition ran $90,000 per year. My parents paid every cent. They helped her move into a beautiful dorm with her own bathroom and a view of the campus green. They bought her a new laptop, a new wardrobe, furniture for her room, and gave her a credit card for expenses. I bought my textbooks used and worked 3 jobs simultaneously. During the week, I worked at the campus IT help desk fixing computers for $12 an hour. On weekends, I did freelance coding work I found on online job boards, building basic websites for small businesses for $200 to $500 per project. And 3 evenings a week, I tutored students in math and computer science for $25 per hour. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter. I wore clothes from thrift stores. I did not go to parties or join clubs or do any of the social things college students are supposed to do. I studied and I worked and I saved every possible dollar. Meanwhile, Jessica's social media showed a completely different college experience. Sorority parties, spring break trips to Cancun and Miami, shopping trips in Boston, concerts, and fancy dinners, and countless pictures of her smiling with her friends, always wearing something new and expensive. When I came home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, the entire conversation at dinner revolved around Jessica's social life. My parents wanted to hear every detail about her sorority, her friends, her classes, her plans. When they asked me about school, it was perfunctory and brief. "How are your classes?" "Good. That is nice, honey." Then right back to Jessica. I brought home a 4.0 grade point average my freshman year. My parents glanced at my transcript and said, "We are proud of you, Graham." Jessica brought home a 2.7. They praised her for working so hard and told her grades did not matter as much as personal growth and finding herself. I won a coding competition sophomore year that came with a $5,000 prize. I told my parents at dinner. My father said, "That is great, son." Then turned to Jessica and asked about her upcoming trip to Europe that summer, which they were funding. I stopped expecting anything different, but I took note of everything. And I kept building. I majored in computer science with a minor in business. I taught myself everything I could about emerging technologies, spending hours in the library reading about machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and cybersecurity. I was particularly fascinated by cybersecurity because I saw a massive gap in the market for small businesses, especially in healthcare. By my junior year, I had a clear vision. Healthcare providers, especially small practices, were becoming digitized rapidly but had almost no cybersecurity infrastructure. They were vulnerable to data breaches and ransomware attacks but could not afford the expensive solutions designed for huge hospital systems. Someone needed to create affordable, scalable cybersecurity, specifically for small to medium healthcare providers. I decided that someone would be me. I graduated at 21 with zero debt and $12,000 saved from my years of relentless work. I also graduated with no attendance from my parents at the ceremony because Jessica had a birthday party weekend that same time and they did not want to miss it. My grandmother came again. She was slower this time, using a cane. But she was there. She hugged me and told me she knew I was going to change the world. She died 6 months later. It was sudden, a heart attack in her sleep. I was devastated. She was the only person in my family who had ever truly seen me. I moved to Boston after graduation and got an entry-level job at a tech startup making $55,000 a year. It felt like a fortune compared to what I had been living on. I rented a room in an apartment with 2 roommates in a neighborhood 45 minutes from my office by subway. My room was barely big enough for a bed and a desk. I could hear everything through the thin walls. But I did not care because I was not really living there. I was living in the future I was building. Every night after work, and all weekend long, I taught myself advanced programming and cybersecurity protocols. I spent 8 months developing proprietary software designed specifically for small healthcare providers. It was a comprehensive cybersecurity solution that was affordable, easy to implement, and scalable. I used my entire $12,000 in savings to develop the minimum viable product and create a basic website and marketing materials. I called my company Secure Health Solutions. I sent cold emails to every small medical practice, dental office, and therapy clinic I could find in New England. Out of 300 emails, I got 5 responses. Out of 5 responses, I got 2 meetings. Out of 2 meetings, I got 1 client. A small family medicine practice in Vermont signed a contract for $12,000 per year. I was back to exactly $0 in the bank, but I had my first client. I worked 100-hour weeks for the next 8 months. I kept my day job and worked on my company every other waking moment. I survived on 4 hours of sleep and developed my software, provided customer service, did my own marketing, and managed everything from my tiny bedroom. Within 18 months, I had 30 clients across New England. My revenue for the first full year was $400,000. I quit my day job and ran my company full-time from a small office I rented for $600 a month. I reinvested every single penny back into the business. Better software, better marketing, hiring my first employee, then my second, then my fifth. Jessica, meanwhile, graduated from college with a degree in communications and no clear career direction. My parents funded a gap year for her in Spain where she could find herself and figure out what she wanted to do with her life. She posted pictures of herself on beaches and at flamenco shows and eating tapas in Barcelona. When she came back a year later, she got an entry-level marketing job at a small firm making $42,000 per year. She quit after 6 months because her boss was mean and did not appreciate her ideas. My parents supported her through that transition, paying her rent and expenses while she looked for something better. She went through 3 more jobs over the next 2 years. Each time, there was a reason it did not work out. The company culture was toxic. Her coworkers were jealous of her. The work was boring. My parents supported her through each transition, never suggesting she might be the common denominator. Eventually, she settled into a position at a mid-sized advertising firm where she made $65,000 per year. My parents treated it like she had been named Fortune 500 CEO. They threw her a celebration dinner. They posted about it on social media. They told everyone who would listen how successful Jessica was becoming. Meanwhile, my company was exploding. By the time I was 26, healthcare cybersecurity had become a critical need nationwide. Data breaches were happening constantly. New regulations were being passed. Small healthcare providers were desperate for affordable solutions. Secure Health Solutions went from 30 clients to 200 clients in 1 year, then from 200 to 800 the next year. We expanded beyond New England to the entire East Coast, then nationally. I hired aggressively. We grew to 50 employees, then 100, then 200. I moved us into a real office building. I stayed on as CEO but brought in experienced people to help run operations, sales, and customer service. And through all of it, I stayed completely under the radar. I never posted on social media. I never bragged. I never told my family anything beyond vague references to my small tech company whenever they bothered to ask, which was rarely. I moved out of my apartment with roommates and bought a modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood for $250,000. It was 1,500 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, nothing fancy. I furnished it simply from IKEA and local furniture stores. I still drove the same used Honda Civic from high school. It now had 300,000 miles on it. The paint was faded and the interior smelled vaguely of old French fries. But it ran fine and I saw no reason to replace it. I lived like I made $50,000 per year, even though my company was grossing $30 million annually by the time I turned 30. Meanwhile, Jessica's life looked incredibly successful on the surface. My parents bought her a new luxury car every 3 years. First an Audi, then a Mercedes, then a Lexus. They paid half her rent on an expensive apartment in a trendy neighborhood. They funded her vacations and shopping trips and gave her money whenever she asked. At every family gathering, she was the star. Everyone asked about her job, her life, her plans. She spoke confidently about campaigns she was working on and clients she was managing. She dressed in expensive clothes and carried designer purses and projected an image of total success. I sat quietly at these gatherings in my jeans from Target and my simple button-down shirts, and nobody asked me much of anything. When conversation did turn to me, it was brief and vaguely pitying. "How is your little tech thing going, Graham?" "Fine," I would say. "That is nice. You always were good with computers." Then back to Jessica. Uncle Robert, my father's older brother, made comments constantly about how I needed to be more ambitious like my sister, how I needed to put myself out there more, how I was not living up to my potential. He was a successful real estate developer and he clearly thought I was wasting my life in some mediocre IT job. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, felt sorry for me. She would pat my hand at family gatherings and tell me there was someone out there for everyone. I just needed to put myself out there more. Maybe try online dating, maybe dress a little nicer. My cousins viewed me as the family disappointment. Tyler, Derek, and Sarah were all doing well in conventional careers, and they treated me with polite condescension. Nobody had any idea what I had actually built, and I liked it that way, because I was not building my company for their approval. I was building it because I was good at it, because it mattered, because it was mine. By the time I turned 32, Secure Health Solutions had become one of the leading cybersecurity providers for small to medium healthcare organizations in the United States. We had over 2,000 clients. We employed 350 people. We had offices in 5 cities. And then the acquisition offer came. A major healthcare technology corporation approached me about buying Secure Health Solutions. They wanted to integrate our technology into their larger platform and expand our reach nationally. The offer was substantial. After 3 months of negotiations, we agreed on a purchase price of $83 million. After taxes, after paying out shares to my early employees who had helped build the company, after all expenses, I personally netted $27 million. I was 32 years old. I had more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, and I told absolutely no one. I kept living in my townhouse. I kept driving my 14-year-old Honda Civic with 320,000 miles on it. I kept wearing my simple clothes. I took a consulting position with the acquiring company that paid well but required minimal hours. Mostly I advised on strategy and product development. To anyone looking at my life from the outside, nothing had changed. 6 months after the acquisition, Thanksgiving rolled around. My parents hosted as they did every year. The entire extended family would be there, just like always. I almost did not go, but my grandmother's voice echoed in my head. She always believed in family, even when family disappointed you. So I went. I had no idea that dinner would detonate my entire family like a bomb. I pulled up to my parents' house in my old Honda Civic at 3:30 in the afternoon on Thanksgiving. The driveway was already crowded with cars. I counted them as I parked on the street. Uncle Robert's Tesla, Aunt Patricia's Cadillac Escalade, my parents' Volvo, and Jessica's brand new Mercedes that my parents had given her 2 weeks earlier for her 29th birthday. My car looked like it belonged to someone making a delivery, not a family member. I walked up to the house carrying a store-bought pie because I had not had time to make anything. Through the window, I could see people already gathered in the living room, drinks in hand, talking and laughing. My mother answered the door. She looked me up and down, her smile tightening slightly when she saw my simple khaki pants and plain navy sweater. "Graham, you are here." She kissed my cheek. "We were wondering if you would make it." "I told you I was coming," I said. "Yes, well." She waved her hand vaguely. Come in. Everyone is already here." I walked into the familiar space. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing and pie. 23 people were scattered through the living room and kitchen. Uncle Robert stood by the fireplace holding a glass of scotch, talking loudly about a commercial real estate deal he had just closed. Aunt Patricia sat on the couch showing people pictures on her phone. My cousins were clustered around the kitchen island, snacking on cheese and crackers. And there was Jessica, holding court in the center of the living room. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost $400 and dark designer jeans. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her makeup was flawless. She was telling some story that had everyone laughing. She saw me and her smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. "Graham!" She came over and hugged me, and I smelled expensive perfume. "I am so glad you came. We were just talking about my promotion. Congratulations," I said. "Senior marketing associate." She said it like it was a vice presidency. 20% raise. I am basically running the entire digital strategy for our biggest client now. "That is great, Jessica." Uncle Robert came over and clapped me on the shoulder. "Graham, good to see you, buddy." He looked at my outfit and I saw the flicker of judgment. "How are things? Still doing that computer stuff?" "Still doing computer stuff," I confirmed. "Well, good for you, man. Someone has to keep the servers running, right?" He laughed at his own joke. Cousin Tyler appeared next to us. "Dude, Graham, When are you going to get a real car? That Civic out there is rough. He was grinning like we were friends, like this was good-natured ribbing. It still runs fine, I said. Barely, Tyler laughed. I am surprised it made it here. You should talk to Uncle Robert. He could get you a deal on something decent. Uncle Robert nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. I know a guy who has a used Camry. Only 60,000 miles. Great condition. I could get it for you for $8,000. I am good, but thanks. The conversation moved on. I helped my mother carry dishes to the dining room table. Jessica continued to be the center of attention. Everyone asking about her job, her apartment, her life. My father beamed at her with pride. Nobody asked me a single question about my life. We finally sat down for dinner at 4:30. The table was beautifully set with my mother's good china and crystal glasses. My father sat at the head, my mother at the other end. Jessica sat to my father's right in the position of honor. I sat halfway down the table between cousins Sarah and Aunt Patricia. My father stood to give a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family is the most important thing in the world, and I am grateful we can all be together. He raised his glass. Special congratulations to Jessica on her big promotion. We are so proud of everything you have accomplished. You make us proud every single day. Everyone raised their glasses. Here, cheers to Jessica. Jessica beamed and did a little half bow. My father sat down and started carving the turkey. Conversation flowed around the table, loud and overlapping. The food was passed around. Plates were filled. Then cousin Derek arrived late. Derek was 34, worked at a big investment firm in New York, and was usually too busy to make family gatherings. But he had driven up for Thanksgiving and walked in right as we were starting to eat, apologizing profusely. Sorry everyone. Traffic was brutal coming out of the city. People called out greetings. My mother jumped up to get him a plate. Derek made his way around the table saying hello to everyone. When he got to me, he stopped. Graham! Man, I did not know you would be here. How are you? Good. How are things in New York? Busy. Crazy. Actually, funny story. He sat down in the empty chair next to me that my mother had just set. I was reviewing potential client lists this morning before I left. You know, ultra-high net worth individuals we want to target. And I saw your name flagged on there. Small world, right? The table had gone quiet. People were listening now, Derek continued, completely oblivious. I did not know you sold your company. 27 million. That is incredible, man. You have got to tell me about that. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Jessica's fork clattered onto her plate. The sound was shockingly loud. What did you just say? Her voice was sharp. Derek looked confused. About Graham selling his company? Jessica stood up so fast her chair tipped backward and crashed to the floor. Her face had gone bright red. $27 million? She was staring at me like I had just grown a second head. That is impossible. Everyone was staring now. My mother had gone pale. My father's mouth hung open. Jessica's voice got louder. I am the successful one. I am the one who got the good education and the good job and did everything right. Graham drives a piece of junk car and lives in a townhouse and works in tech support. It is not tech support, I said quietly. Then what is it? She was nearly shouting now. What company did you supposedly sell for $27 million? Because that is insane. That cannot be real. Derek looked extremely uncomfortable. I probably should not have said anything. Uncle Robert stood up, his face red, his voice booming. He pointed at my father. Did you know about this? Did you know your son had this kind of money and you did not tell the family? My father shook his head, looking completely shocked. I had no idea. Graham never said anything. Uncle Robert turned his anger on me. What kind of person hides something like this from their family? What were you thinking? Aunt Patricia's voice was high and upset. This is very strange, Graham. Very strange behavior. My mother had tears in her eyes. Graham, how could you keep something like this from us? Jessica was still standing, her hands balled into fists at her sides. Everyone has been treating me like I am so successful, and you have been sitting there this whole time knowing you had millions of dollars? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I looked around the table at 23 faces staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to anger to confusion. Nobody looked happy for me. Nobody was congratulating me. They were treating me like I had done something wrong. It is true, I said calmly. I built a cybersecurity company. I sold it 6 months ago. After everything, I netted 27 million. My mother made a choking sound. 6 months ago? You have known for 6 months and did not tell us? It did not come up, I said. Did not come up? Jessica's voice was shrill now. How does $27 million not come up? How do you just not mention that? Because none of you ever asked me about my life, I said. The table went very still. What is that supposed to mean? My father said. It means exactly what I said. None of you have ever asked me about my work beyond vague questions you do not really want answers to. You do not know what my company was called. You do not know what we did. You do not know anything about my life because you have never been interested. That is not fair, my mother said, but her voice wavered. Uncle Robert slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You are making this about your hurt feelings when you have been lying to your family for years. I was not lying, I said. I just was not volunteering information nobody wanted. You should have told us, Aunt Patricia said. We are family. Family does not keep secrets like this. Jessica sat back down heavily. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I cannot believe this. My entire life I thought I was the successful one, and you have just been secretly rich this whole time. Do you know what that feels like? Actually, yes, I said. I do. I know what it feels like to watch someone else get everything while you get nothing. I know it extremely well. My mother gasped. Graham! My father stood up abruptly. Everyone needs to leave. Dinner is over. Right now. What? Several people said at once. This dinner is over. We need space to process this as an immediate family. Everyone please go, now. The extended family looked shocked but started to gather their things. There was awkward shuffling and murmured confusion. Aunt Patricia tried to argue, but Uncle Robert put his hand on her shoulder and guided her toward the door. As people filed out, Uncle Robert stopped right in front of me. He leaned down so his face was inches from mine. You have destroyed this family's holiday, he said quietly, his voice dripping with contempt. I hope you are proud of yourself. Then they were gone. All of them. Until it was just me, my parents, and Jessica sitting at a table full of food nobody was eating anymore. My father stood at the head of the table, his hands gripping the back of his chair so hard his knuckles were white. We need to talk tomorrow, he said, not looking at me. My office. 10 in the morning. I nodded. Jessica would not even look at me. She grabbed her purse and walked out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I helped my mother silently clean up the mess of broken dishes from where she had dropped them earlier. Then I left. I drove home in my old Honda Civic, and my phone started buzzing before I even got out of the driveway. By the time I got home 17 minutes later, I had 17 missed calls and 38 text messages. I read through them slowly. Jessica, you humiliated me in front of everyone. I will never forgive you. You are not my brother anymore. Uncle Robert, your parents sacrificed everything for you kids, and this is how you repay them, with secrets and lies. You should be ashamed. Aunt Patricia, I always knew there was something off about you, Graham. This confirms it. Cousin Tyler, bro, you made Thanksgiving super awkward. Not cool. Cousin Sarah, I do not even know what to say. This is so weird. On and on. Message after message from family members I barely spoke to, all telling me I had done something wrong. I had ruined everything. I owed everyone an explanation and an apology. Only one message was different. Cousin Derek. Sorry, man. I did not know it was a secret. But honestly, they are all being ridiculous. You earned that money. Congratulations. I set my phone down and sat in my quiet townhouse, and I wondered if I had just made a terrible mistake, or if I had finally, after 32 years, told the truth. I did not sleep that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to my phone buzz over and over with messages I did not read. Around 3 in the morning, the buzzing finally stopped. I got up at 7 and made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table and thought about the meeting with my parents. Part of me wanted to skip it, to just cut contact and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that was still that 8-year-old boy hoping his parents would finally see him, needed to hear what they would say. I showed up at my father's home office at exactly 10 in the morning. It was a room I had rarely been allowed in as a child. His sanctuary, dark wood paneling and leather furniture and shelves of books he had never read, but that looked impressive. Both my parents were there. They looked exhausted. My mother's eyes were red and puffy. My father's jaw was tight. "Sit down," my father said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat. There was a long silence. Finally, my mother spoke. "Graham, your father and I are very hurt." I waited. "We gave you a good childhood. We provided for you. We loved you. And for you to keep something this significant from us, to let us find out like this, in front of the entire family, it is just..." She stopped, her voice breaking. "It is cruel." I kept my voice level. "You gave Jessica a good childhood. I was just there." My father's face went red. "That is not true. Do not start with this again." "It is true." I pulled out my phone. I had spent hours the night before compiling facts. Jessica's private school tuition over 12 years totaled $540,000. My public school cost you nothing. Jessica's cars over the years, 4 vehicles, totaled approximately $210,000. My cars consisted of one used Civic I bought myself for $4,000. Jessica's college was fully paid by you, $360,000. My college I paid for myself through scholarships and work. You contributed $0. Should I continue? My mother was crying now. Jessica needed more support. She was not as naturally capable as you were. "So you decided I did not deserve support because I could handle things on my own?" "We made the decisions we thought were best for both of you," my father said. "No," I said. "You made decisions that were best for Jessica. I was an afterthought. I was the kid who did not need anything, so I got nothing." "How can you say that?" my mother said. "We love you." "Maybe you do," I said, "but you never showed it. You missed my graduation. You forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. You never came to anything that mattered to me. You never asked about my life. You never cared." "We cared," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then why?" I asked. "Why her and not me? What did I do wrong?" "Nothing," my mother said quickly. "You did nothing wrong. Jessica just needed us more. So I got less because I needed you less?" I stood up. "Do you hear how messed up that is? Children do not raise themselves. I should not have had to not need you." My father stood too. "We are not going to sit here and be attacked in our own home." "I am not attacking you. I am telling you the truth. And you cannot handle it." There was a tense silence. Then my father said something that would change everything. "Graham, your sister is very upset. This has been traumatic for her." "Traumatic for her?" I stared at him. "Finding out your brother has money is traumatic. It has shaken her self-worth," my mother said. "She has always looked up to you as her big brother. This revelation has really hurt her." I waited to see where this was going. My father cleared his throat. "We think it would help the family heal if you shared some of your good fortune with Jessica." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Jessica has student loans from graduate school that we could not fully cover. About $90,000. And she has been wanting to buy a condo but cannot afford a down payment. If you could help her with those things, it would show her that you care about her, that you are not just flaunting your success while she struggles." I felt my chest tighten. "You want me to give Jessica money?" "Not give," my father said quickly. "Help, the way family helps family." "Let me understand this," I said slowly. "For 32 years, I watched you give Jessica everything. Cars, trips, education, rent money, everything. I never complained. I worked for everything I have. I built a company from nothing. And now that I have succeeded, Your response is that I should give her more. Do not be selfish, my mother said. That word, selfish. I felt something crack inside me. You have $27 million, my father said. What is a few $100,000 to help your sister? No, I said. What? My mother looked shocked. I said no, I am not giving Jessica a single dollar. My father's face darkened. Then I think you should leave. I stood up. Fine. As I walked toward the door, my father said something that stopped me in my tracks. If you will not help your sister, then maybe you should reconsider whether you are really part of this family. I turned around slowly. Are you serious? My mother was nodding, tears streaming down her face. We have always tried to teach you both about family loyalty. Clearly, money has made you forget those values. I looked at both of them, at their faces full of righteous indignation, and I realized something stunning. They genuinely believed they had been fair. They genuinely believed I was the one being unreasonable. I have never forgotten family loyalty, I said quietly. The problem is, I am the only one who ever practiced it. Then I left. I got in my car and drove home, and I felt lighter than I had in years, because I finally understood. I had been waiting my entire life for my parents to see me, to value me, to choose me, and they never would. Not because I was not good enough, but because they had decided long ago who mattered more, and I was done waiting. The week after that meeting was brutal. My phone never stopped. Messages, voicemails, emails, all from family members telling me what a terrible person I was. Uncle Robert left a voicemail, his voice shaking with anger. Your father called me in tears, Graham. Actual tears. Do you have any idea what you have done to him? How dare you treat your parents this way after everything they have done for you? You are selfish and ungrateful, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Aunt Patricia sent a long email with the subject line, Family comes first. She wrote paragraph after paragraph about how my greed was tearing the family apart. How I had always been a little strange and distant. How she had tried to help me over the years, but I had always pushed people away. And now she understood why. I was cold. I was calculating. I cared more about money than people. Cousin Tyler sent a brief text. Dude, what is your problem? Just help Jessica out. You have millions. Cousin Sarah sent something longer and more psychological. I know you probably felt overlooked growing up, but that does not give you the right to hurt people now. You need to work on your resentment. Maybe see a therapist? Jessica posted on social media. The posts were vague but clearly about me. When you realize the people you trusted most have been lying to you your whole life. Success without family means nothing. Some people change when they get money and forget where they came from. Her friends commented with hearts and supportive messages. So sorry you are going through this. You deserve better. Family should lift each other up, not tear each other down. People we both knew started reaching out to me, asking if I was okay, if something had happened between Jessica and me. The rumors were spreading. I took the week off from consulting work. I stayed in my townhouse and tried to process everything. I went through boxes of old family photos I had stored in my closet. What I found broke something open in me. In hundreds of family photos spanning decades, there was a pattern I had never consciously noticed. In every professional family portrait, Jessica was centered, her face turned toward the camera, her smile bright. I was always positioned to the side, slightly behind, sometimes partially cut off by the frame. In candid photos from holidays and birthdays, Jessica was in focus, the clear subject. I was often blurry in the background, or cut off at the edge, or absent entirely. I found my high school graduation program. Under the section where families could pay to place congratulatory messages, there was a full-page spread for Jessica's friend Ashley, with a huge photo and a message from her parents about how proud they were. There was nothing for me. My parents had not purchased any space at all. I found Jessica's college graduation program. There was a half-page spread with a professional photo of her and a long message from our parents. We are so proud of the woman you have become. You have brought us so much joy. The future is bright because of people like you. I sat on my floor surrounded by these artifacts and felt the weight of 32 years of evidence. It had not been in my head. It had not been me being sensitive or keeping score. It had been real. Then my email pinged. A message from an address I did not recognize. The sender was Aunt Helen, my mother's older sister who lived in Oregon. She rarely came to family events because she lived so far away. I had not seen her since I was maybe 19. The subject line read, "I am sorry I never said anything." I opened it. "Dear Graham," the email began. "I hope you do not mind me reaching out. I got your email address from your mother, though she does not know I am writing to you. I was not at Thanksgiving, but your mother called me in tears about what happened. She told me her version of events, but I wanted you to know that I have watched this dynamic for many years, and I am deeply ashamed I never spoke up. I watched your parents treat you and Jessica differently from the time you were both very young. I saw how much more attention, affection, and resources Jessica received. I saw how often you were overlooked or forgotten. I told myself it was not my place to interfere, that every family does things differently, that I should not cause conflict. I was wrong. You deserved an advocate, and I failed you. Your grandmother, my mother, saw it too. Before she died, she told me many times how special you were, how worried she was that you would never get the recognition you deserved from your own parents. She believed in you so deeply. She wished her daughter, your mother, could see what she saw. There is something else you should know. Your grandmother left her estate split between her grandchildren when she died. Her estate was modest, about $150,000 divided 4 ways, but she left specific instructions about your portion. She put your share in a trust with the stipulation that you would only receive it if you needed it for your dreams, as she put it. She wanted to make sure you had resources to pursue whatever path called to you. But your parents told the estate executor that you were financially stable and did not need the money. They convinced him not to tell you the trust existed. The money has been sitting there for 6 years, growing with interest. It is now worth approximately $220,000. I found out about this accidentally last year when I was helping settle some final paperwork for my mother's estate. I was horrified, but I did not know how to tell you without causing a massive family rift. After hearing about what happened at Thanksgiving, I realized you deserved to know the truth. Your grandmother wanted you to have that money. She left it specifically for you. Your parents had no right to hide it from you. I am sorry, Graham. I am sorry I was not braver. I am sorry your family has treated you this way. You deserved so much better. If you want to pursue this legally, I will support you. The attorney's name is Richard Walsh. I am including his contact information below. With love and regret, Aunt Helen. I read the email 3 times. My grandmother had left me money. Money specifically meant to help me pursue my dreams. Money that could have helped me when I was eating ramen noodles and working 3 jobs and trying to build something from nothing. And my parents had hidden it from me. I called the attorney, Richard Walsh, immediately. He was apologetic and professional. He confirmed everything Aunt Helen had said. He explained that he had relied on the family's representation that I was stable and did not need the funds. He had no reason to question them. The trust had continued to grow, and yes, it was now worth $220,000. And yes, it was legally mine. I could access it whenever I wanted. I sat in my quiet townhouse and thought about my grandmother, the woman who had come to my graduations when no one else did, who had believed in me when my own parents could not be bothered to ask about my life, who had given me $5,000 when I was 18 with a note saying I was going to do something extraordinary. She had tried to give me one more gift, and my parents had intercepted it. I sent an email to my parents. I kept it short and factual. I have learned about grandmother's trust fund. I have spoken with the estate attorney. I know you told him not to notify me of its existence. I know you have been hiding this from me for 6 years. I need you to explain why. My father called within 10 minutes. He was angry. Who told you about that? Does it matter? It was Helen, was not it? She had no right to share private family financial information. It was not private. It was mine. Grandmother left it to me. That money was set aside in case you ever struggled. You clearly did not need it. That was not your decision to make, I said. Grandmother left it for me specifically. She put instructions in her will. You had no right to hide it. My mother got on the line. Her voice was sharp. "Graham, you are being ridiculous. $200,000 is nothing to you now. Why does this even matter? Because it shows you have been controlling my life in ways I never knew. What else have you hidden from me?" "We are your parents," my father said. "We make decisions in your best interest." "No," I said. "You make decisions in Jessica's best interest. I am just collateral damage. I have always been collateral damage." "If that is what you think of us," my father said, "then maybe we need to have a family meeting. Get everything out in the open. Let the whole family decide who is being unreasonable here." "Fine," I said. "When?" "This Sunday. Everyone will be there. You can air all your grievances. We will see who the family sides with." It was a trap. I knew it immediately. He was confident that the extended family, most of whom had already been messaging me about how terrible I was, would side with my parents. "Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Number of school events parents attended for me. 12 over 18 years. I printed everything out. I put it in a folder. I was ready. 2 days before the family meeting, a certified letter arrived. It was from an attorney representing my parents. I opened it with shaking hands. The letter stated that given my hostile attitude toward the family and my refusal to provide reasonable assistance to my struggling sister, my parents were formally requesting that I repay them for the cost of my childhood expenses. They had itemized everything. 18 years of room and board, food, clothing, medical care, school supplies, estimated at approximately $45,000. The letter stated this was only fair, given that I had demanded an accounting of what they had spent on Jessica. It concluded, "Your parents are prepared to forgive this debt if you agree to provide financial assistance to your sister and cease your hostile communications." I sat at my kitchen table reading this letter, and I started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd, so perfectly illustrative of everything wrong with my family, that I could not believe it was real. They were billing me for my childhood. They were actually billing me for being their son. And they thought this was reasonable. I put the letter in my folder with everything else. Sunday could not come fast enough. Sunday afternoon arrived cold and gray. I drove to my parents' house and saw that the driveway and street were packed with cars. Everyone had come. Uncle Robert, Aunt Patricia, all 3 cousins, even some extended family I barely knew. And there was one car I had not expected, a rental sedan with Oregon plates. Aunt Helen had flown in. I walked up to the front door carrying my folder. My mother answered. Her face was puffy and red. She looked at me with something between anger and desperation. "Everyone is in the living room," she said coldly. I walked in. The living room had been arranged like a courtroom. My father sat in his large armchair at one end. My mother sat beside him in the matching chair. Jessica sat on the couch to their right, her eyes red from crying. The rest of the family filled the other chairs and couches. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia sat directly across from my parents, positioned like judges. The cousins were spread around the room, and there in the corner, quiet and watchful, was Aunt Helen. She gave me a small nod. There was one empty chair in the middle of the room, clearly for me. I sat down. My father cleared his throat. He looked around the room with grave seriousness. "We are here because this family is fracturing. Graham has made serious accusations about how his mother and I raised him and Jessica. He has refused to help his sister in a time of need. He has been secretive and hostile. We need to address this as a family and decide how to move forward." Uncle Robert leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Graham, I have known you since you were born. I have never seen your parents so devastated. They have been crying for days. Whatever you think happened in your childhood, you need to let it go. You are an adult now." Aunt Patricia nodded vigorously. "Whatever happened in the past, Graham, holding on to resentment is only hurting you. Your parents did their best. No parent is perfect. But you cannot punish them forever for perceived slights." Jessica spoke next, her voice small and broken. "I just want my brother back." She wiped her eyes. I do not understand why you hate me, Graham. What did I ever do to you? The room was silent, everyone looking at me expectantly. I opened my folder and pulled out my spreadsheet. I do not hate anyone, I said, calmly, but I am not going to be gaslit into believing my childhood was fair or normal. I handed the spreadsheet to my father. He looked at it, his face going red. This is a breakdown of lifetime parental investment in each child, I said. Jessica received approximately $1,200,000 in direct financial support. I received approximately $8,000. The disparity is 150 to 1. My father pushed the paper away. Jessica needed more support. I pulled out the second document. This is a record of attendance at significant life events. You attended 97 events for Jessica and 12 for me over our childhoods. You missed my high school graduation because you were touring colleges with Jessica. My mother started crying. We did our best! I pulled out a third document. This is a copy of grandmother's will and the trust documents. She left money specifically for me to pursue my dreams. You hid it from me for 6 years. Aunt Helen spoke up from the corner. I can confirm that is true. I was there when the estate was settled. Their parents explicitly told the attorney not to inform Graham. Uncle Robert looked shocked. He turned to my father. Is that true? My father was defensive, his voice rising. The executor and I decided together that Graham did not need it. He was financially stable. It was not your decision to make, I said. She left it for me. Not for you to decide whether I deserved it. Cousin Tyler, who had been judgmental before, looked uncomfortable. That is actually really messed up, he said quietly. Cousin Derek nodded. Yeah, hiding an inheritance is not okay. I pulled out the final document. The certified letter. And this, I said, is a letter your attorney sent me 3 days ago. I read it aloud. They are billing me $45,000 for my childhood expenses. Room and board for 18 years. Several people gasped. Cousin Derek's mouth fell open. Wait, they are charging you for being their kid? My father stood up. That letter was sent to make a point about his unreasonable accounting. The point it made, I said, is that you view me as a financial transaction, not as your son, as an expense. That is not what we meant. My mother was sobbing now. Jessica suddenly stood up. Her voice was loud and sharp. Wait, you sent him a bill? For his childhood? My mother reached for her. Jessica, honey, you do not understand. No. Jessica pulled away. I do understand. She turned to look at me, then back at our parents. He is right. You know he is right. Jessica, my father said warningly. No, Dad. Jessica's voice cracked. I have known for years that you treated us differently. I just never said anything because I benefited from it. But this is insane. You cannot bill someone for being your child. The room had gone very quiet. Jessica turned to me, mascara running down her face. I have been jealous of you my entire life. I stared at her. What? You never needed anyone, she said. You just figured things out on your own. I needed constant help, constant validation, constant support. You were always better than me at everything, and Mom and Dad tried to compensate by giving me every advantage they could, but it just made me weaker. I am 29 years old and I still cannot make a major decision without calling them first. She turned back to our parents. Do you know how that feels? To know that every single thing I have accomplished was purchased? That none of it was really mine? That I have no idea who I am without you directing everything? Jessica, my mother said desperately, we just wanted to help you. You wanted to control me, Jessica said, and you abandoned him. She pointed at me. You abandoned your own son because he did not need you to control him. Uncle Robert sat back in his chair. He looked at my father with something I had never seen before. Disappointment. Aunt Patricia was staring at her hands, saying nothing. Aunt Helen stood up. I need to say something. She looked around the room. I have watched this family for 40 years. I watched my sister and her husband decide that one child mattered more than the other. I watched Graham be overlooked and forgotten and pushed aside. and I said nothing because I did not want to cause problems. I was wrong, and I am deeply ashamed. She looked at my parents. You owe Graham more than an apology. You owe him acknowledgement. You owe him the truth. You treated your children differently, and it was not fair. It damaged them both, just in different ways. My father stood up, his face red, his jaw clenched. I will not be lectured in my own home. Then admit it, I said. Just admit you treated us differently. Admit it was not fair. That is all I want. There was a long, heavy silence. My father looked at me, his eyes hard. I cannot do that. My mother shook her head. We did our best with what we knew. We made the decisions we thought were right. Then we are done here, I said. I stood up. Wait, Jessica shouted. Everyone turned to her. She looked at our parents, her face set with determination I had never seen before. If you cannot admit what you did to Graham, then I cannot keep accepting your help either. She took a shaky breath. I am done. No more rent assistance, no more car payments, no more bailouts. I need to figure out who I am without you controlling everything. My mother gasped. Jessica, please! My father's face went purple. You are making a mistake. Maybe, Jessica said. But it is my mistake to make. Uncle Robert spoke quietly. Good for you, Jessica. In that moment, looking at my sister's tear-streaked face, I saw her clearly for the first time, not as my spoiled adversary, but as another victim of our parents' dysfunction, just damaged in a different way. The room erupted. Aunt Patricia was crying. Uncle Robert was arguing with my father. Cousins were talking over each other. My mother was begging Jessica to reconsider. I walked out. I walked out into the cold November air and got into my old Honda Civic and drove away. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I could breathe fully. 2 weeks passed. I heard nothing from my parents. The extended family had gone quiet too, except for a few supportive messages from Aunt Helen and Cousin Derek. My phone buzzed one afternoon with a text from Jessica. Can we talk? I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, neutral territory. When she walked in, she looked different. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain sweater. Nothing designer. She looked less polished but more real. She sat down across from me and did not say anything for a long moment. Then, I moved out of my apartment. I am in a place I can actually afford now. 1 bedroom in a neighborhood that is not trendy. It is small, but it is mine. That is good, I said. I returned the Mercedes. Bought a used Toyota with my own money. She smiled weakly. It is not as nice, but it feels better somehow. I know what you mean. She took a deep breath. I am not going to make excuses for myself, Graham. I knew you were getting the short end. I knew it was not fair, and I took advantage of it. I told myself you did not care, that you were fine on your own, but I knew better. I just did not want to give up what I was getting. Why now? I asked. Because that family meeting was the first time I actually saw clearly how messed up everything was. And I realized I am almost 30 and I have no idea who I am without Mom and Dad directing every part of my life. She looked down at her coffee. Every achievement I have ever had feels hollow because it was purchased, not earned. Do you know what that is like? Actually, I do, I said, just from the opposite direction. We sat in silence for a moment. I am starting therapy, she said, trying to figure out who Jessica actually is when she is not performing for Mom and Dad. That is brave. She looked up at me, her eyes red. I am not asking you to forgive me. I know I hurt you, maybe not intentionally, but I did. I benefited from a system that hurt you, and I did not speak up. That is on me. I appreciate you saying that. I just want a chance to know the real you, she said. Not as the overlooked brother or the secretly successful guy or any of that, just as Graham. And I want you to know the real me, whoever that turns out to be. No financial stuff between us. No parents in the middle. Just 2 people trying to figure out how to be siblings as adults. I can do that, I said. Slowly, carefully. But I can try. She smiled, and it was genuine. That is all I am asking. We met for coffee 3 more times over the next month. The conversations were awkward at first, full of long pauses and careful words. But slowly, something started to build. Not the sibling relationship we had pretended to have, but something real and new. My parents sent a formal apology letter 4 weeks after the family meeting. It was clearly written by an attorney. It acknowledged errors in judgment and expressed regret for any pain caused, but it stopped short of real accountability. It was careful and strategic and emotionally empty. They invited me to Christmas. I politely declined. I sent a response saying I would consider rebuilding our relationship after they engaged in family therapy to address the underlying issues. I recommended they work with someone who specialized in family systems and childhood trauma. They never responded. Uncle Robert called me 6 weeks after the meeting. His voice was different, softer somehow. "Graham, I owe you an apology. A real one." I listened. I saw your father making the same mistakes with you that my father made with us. Robert was the golden child. I was the afterthought. I spent 40 years trying to earn approval I will never get. I should have recognized what was happening to you. Instead, I judged you. I am sorry. Thank you for saying that. Can I buy you lunch? I would like to talk more. We met the following week. Uncle Robert told me his own story of growing up invisible next to a favored sibling. He told me about the therapy he had finally started at 62 years old to deal with it. He told me he wished he had been braver, had spoken up for me when I was young. We started meeting monthly. It was unexpected, but valuable. He became a mentor in ways my father never had been. I used some of my wealth to start a mentoring program for young entrepreneurs from overlooked backgrounds, people who had been invisible in their families, their schools, their communities. I funded it quietly and ran it through a foundation. The goal was simple: to see people who had not been seen, to invest in people who had been considered not worth investing in. My grandmother's trust fund, all $220,000. I donated to create a scholarship fund at my old public high school. I named it after her. The first recipient was a quiet kid with perfect grades whose single mother worked 3 jobs and could not afford to attend award ceremonies. I attended the scholarship ceremony. I watched that kid walk across the stage to accept the award, and I saw myself in him. And I realized my grandmother's belief in me had been the seed of everything I had built. 1 year after that explosive Thanksgiving, my life looked externally similar. I still lived in my modest townhouse. I still drove my ancient Honda Civic, now with 350,000 miles. I still wore simple clothes and lived simply. But internally, everything had shifted. I no longer carried the weight of proving myself to people who could not see me. I no longer sought validation from people who were incapable of giving it. I had built a chosen family: Aunt Helen, Uncle Robert, Cousin Derek, and slowly, carefully, Jessica. Jessica had transformed over that year. She had paid off half her student loans herself. She had been promoted at work based on actual merit. She was dating someone she met through friends, not through our parents' connections. She called me once a month, not for money or help, just to talk. Our relationship was small and careful, but it was real. My parents sent occasional messages, brief, surface-level attempts at contact that avoided all the real issues. I responded politely but maintained my boundaries. Perhaps someday we would do the hard work of real reconciliation. But not yet, maybe not ever, and I was okay with that. I recorded a voice memo to myself one evening, sitting in my quiet living room. Later, I would share it with the young people in my mentoring program. I used to think the unfairness of my childhood was something I needed to overcome, but I have realized it was something I needed to understand. My parents made choices based on fear. Fear that Jessica could not succeed without massive support. Fear that admitting their differential treatment would make them bad parents. They never understood that giving one child everything and the other child nothing does not balance out to fairness. It just creates 2 different kinds of damage. Jessica got external validation without internal strength. I got internal strength without external validation. We both suffered, just differently. The money I earned is not what matters. What matters is that I learned the most valuable lesson anyone can learn. Your worth is not determined by how others invest in you. It is determined by how you invest in yourself. I do not tell my story to make people feel sorry for me. I tell it because there are thousands of kids right now sitting at dinner tables feeling invisible, watching siblings get everything, wondering if they matter, and I want them to know, you do matter. Your invisibility now does not predict your future. Sometimes being overlooked is the greatest gift because it forces you to look inward instead of seeking outward validation. Build yourself. Trust yourself. Do not wait for permission or validation from people who cannot see you. And when you succeed, and you will succeed, do not let bitterness poison your victory. Let it teach you empathy. Let it make you the person who sees others the way you wish to be seen. That is the real wealth. Becoming someone who breaks cycles instead of continuing them. On Thanksgiving, exactly 1 year after the explosion, I hosted dinner at my townhouse. My guests were Aunt Helen, who flew in from Oregon, Uncle Robert, who brought an apple pie, Cousin Derek, who brought wine, and Jessica, who brought a pie she had baked herself. It was slightly burned around the edges, but she had made it with her own hands and her own effort, and that meant everything. We sat around my small dining table. We told stories. Uncle Robert talked about building his first business from nothing. Aunt Helen shared memories of my grandmother. Derek talked about leaving his high-paying finance job to start a nonprofit. Jessica talked about her therapy breakthroughs and how scary and freeing it was to build a life on her own terms. And I looked around that table and realized this was what family should have been all along. People who showed up not because of obligation or advantage, but because they genuinely wanted to know each other. People who saw you. People who chose you. My phone buzzed during dinner. A text from my mother. "We miss you. Please come home for Christmas." I set the phone down without responding. Maybe someday, maybe when they were ready to do the hard work of real change and accountability. But not today. Today, I was exactly where I needed to be. I was 33 years old. I had $27 million in the bank. I drove a 14-year-old Honda Civic with 350,000 miles. I lived in a modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. I wore simple clothes and lived a simple life, and I was happier than I had ever been, because I had learned the hardest and most important lesson. You cannot control how others value you, but you can always control how you value yourself. You cannot make people see you who are determined to look past you, but you can see yourself clearly, honestly, completely. The invisibility of my childhood had taught me to see myself. The favoritism I had endured had taught me to be fair. The wealth I had built had taught me that money was just a tool, not a measure of worth. I had spent 32 years feeling invisible. Now I understood that I had never been invisible at all. I had always been there, solid and real and worthy. The problem was never me. The problem was that I had been asking the wrong people to do the seeing. So I stopped asking. I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping for validation that would never come from sources that were never going to provide it. And I built a life worth living. Not perfect. Not without pain or complication or difficulty. But mine. Authentically. Completely. Undeniably. That Thanksgiving dinner, surrounded by people who chose to be there, who chose me, I finally understood what my grandmother had been trying to tell me all along. You are going to do something extraordinary. She had been right, not because I made millions of dollars, but because I learned to value myself when nobody else would, because I built myself up when I was being torn down, because I became the person who breaks cycles. That is extraordinary. That is wealth beyond measure. That is the victory. And it is available to anyone willing to do the work, to face the pain, to choose themselves even when the people who should have chosen them never did. If you are sitting at a dinner table right now feeling invisible, please hear me. You are not invisible. You are just surrounded by people who refuse to see. And when you finally walk away from those people and find the ones who do see you, who have been waiting to see you, everything changes. That is the lesson. That is the truth. That is the resolution. You cannot control how you start, but you can absolutely control who you become. And that makes all the difference. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you watched someone else get everything while you got nothing? How did you handle it? Did you walk away, or did you stay and fight for recognition? I want to hear your stories in the comments below because I know I am not the only one who has lived through this. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they are not alone. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already because I share stories like this regularly. Stories about real-life struggles and how people overcome them. And please share this video with someone who might need to hear it. You never know who is sitting at a dinner table right now feeling exactly the way I felt for 32 years. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you found something valuable in it. Something that helps you in your own life and your own relationships. Remember, your worth is not determined by how others see you. It is determined by how you see yourself. And once you truly see yourself clearly, nobody can make you invisible ever again. Take care of yourselves, value yourselves, and never stop building the life you deserve.